She thinking thoughts march in. This Jezebel would surely send his soul to hell. He stood aghast, could hardly stutter, and off he sprinted a roar. Stripped blinded into bed. Decades of the rosary set. And this is the epilogue. Our Michael Moore still sleeps alone in his lava bed, a home. He often dreams of Shomra Huck and what might have been. Michael Huck.
That's transport into the realm of love.
On a bicycle.
On a bicycle. I know stories, sometimes the difference in a storytelling session and stand-up comedy and that is that stories have layers of meanings within them. There's yarns, there's bits of crack, and then you have stories that have a message, something to impart. And just because of what I do during the day and the day job, I work with a lot of migrants and people from overseas. So there's a story I was told, and I think it's very apt for the times that we live in. And I'll just share it with you tonight, because here in Clones I know we have a lot of people from overseas. Once there was a man, and he lived happily in his home until war came to his country. And he had to flee. He had to flee his home in such haste that he had no time to bring anything. He had no time to bring documentation, papers, nothing. The only thing that he had time to grab hold of as he was leaving his native home for the last time was a stone that was sitting outside the front door of his house. A small stone about the size of his fist. And he put the stone, I'm getting his own microphone. Oops. He put the stone into his pocket. He kept it close to his heart. And he travelled. He had to travel for many miles overland. He was at the mercy of bandits, of robbers. Along the way, what little money he had to part with to try and get passage to safety. He came to a great ocean and he managed to get onto a boat, an overcrowded boat, and get across that ocean. But at last he came to an island, and it was green, and it was peaceful, and it was safe. And he wandered through the island until he came to a town. And when he came to that town, he had been travelling a long time. He was very, very hungry. And he knocked on the doors in the town and he asked for something to eat. But the people in the town said, "Give you something to eat? We barely have enough for ourselves. We're starving here too. No, we can't share anything with you. Go away." So the man moved on, and every door he knocked at was the same. And eventually, as he was approaching the edge of the town, about to leave, he found a discarded pot on the side of the road. And he had an idea. He gathered up some firewood and he put it under the pot, and he got some water from a stream nearby, and he filled the pot with water and he brought it to the boy. And as he was doing this, the children in the town came out and they stood and they stared at him. He said, "What are you doing?" And the man said, "I'm making soup." He said, "But you've nothing in the pot, only water. How are you going to make soup with that?" He said, "Oh, this is a very, very special soup." He said, "This is stone soup." And he took the stone from near his heart and he put it in the pot. He said, "Have you ever tasted stone soup before?" They said, "No, we never have." "What does it taste like?" "It's the most fantastic soup you will ever taste. It just needs a few carrots to give it just the right flavour." So one of the children said, My mummy has carrots. And home he went. And back he came with carrots. Is it ready now? Well, it could do with a few potatoes. Another child was gone, back with potatoes. What about now? Well, if it had a little bit of herbs, that would really help season it. And the children scattered all across the town, bringing back bits and pieces from every house, even bringing bits of meat and chicken and everything went into the pot. And when the soup was ready, the man tasted it and he said, yes, now it's just perfect. He said, go get your parents, get everyone, and come back here and we share the soup together. So that's what the children did. They ran off. And when they were gone, the man got a ladle and he pulled out the stone and he dusted it off and he put it back inside his coat pocket, close to his heart. And when the people came out and they shared the soup with him, they said, you know something? We didn't think we had enough for ourselves, but when we share, we have enough for everybody. And the man settled down in the town. Whenever he felt lonesome for home, he would take out the stone and he would touch it. But for the rest of his days, he lived happily in his new abode. So, just to let anyone who's living in Clonus know, there's a whole new community here from all across the world, and they have brilliant stories to tell. People from Ukraine, people from Syria, people from East Timor, from Brazil. And some point further down the line, we're going to get some of those people into a room like this tonight, and we'll get their stories as well. Would that be a bit of crack? Yeah. Great stuff.
Especially the spoken Brazilian.
Yes. We had hoped to have a birthday lady here tonight, but I don't think she made it. So, no, didn't make it, preach. No. But that being the case, we can't help that. But if she had been here, I would have been telling her the following story, because I told this the other day. There was a Cavan man and his wife had a birthday coming up. She was going to be 70. So he bought her a present. He bought her a coffin.
Oh, typical Cavan man.
And a year later, her birthday rolled around and he got her nothing at all. And she was very upset. She says to him, it's my birthday, you didn't even get me a present. He says, you never used the one I got you last year. So that's another means of travel. But you don't want to travel underground, definitely not. We're coming up. I'm just going to take a quick check on time here. Yep, we're going to have a wee break in 10 minutes. But before we take a wee break, I'm going to throw a shout out to Peter Kavanagh at the very back of the hall. And I think you have a guitar with you, Peter, have you? You want to come up to me? Good man. I've got a nice swivelly chair for you. If it was a rocking chair, you could be Val Doonican, but...
You do the catch in the summer.
Was it to say no free lunch?
There was really
What way do you want this? Hang on. That big? It's not there. Do you know this equipment better than me?
Right, how are you all doing? Right. Can you hear me?
No.
It's not too close.
It works, but not really we need to use the driver. We'll tell you that.
No, that's fantastic, is it? Yeah. Right, I'm going to do them up here. Francie was telling us there about stories about travel. And I suppose the first thing that occurred to me was in Ireland, where pretty famous for travelling, mostly for packing bags and heading away someplace. And this wee song comes from up my neck of the woods. If I can figure it out. As the train pulls out today from Derry City, 1,000 memories linger on my mind. Why do I have to go? It's such a pity. And all the dear old friends I leave behind. As I gaze beyond the harbour, I'm recalling familiar names like Doherty and Coyle. Through misty eyes I see my teardrops falling. Goodbye to my old hometown.
Can I re-engineer myself back? I know it's this one. There we go. There we go. You'd know the professional. Whenever you see one in action, you know a professional. We've done a fair wee bit of travelling there in the first part of the evening, so we might travel out for a cup of tea in a moment. A lot of people would have flown. Nowadays, it's not so big a novelty, but there was a man from Davenant Parish called Mick Phil, and he had never been on a plane until he was well into his 70s, and they were flying to America. And when they were flying to America, the plane hit turbulence, and it was buffeting and bouncing in the sky, and old Mick turned to the nephew that was with him, and he says, "Do you think she got a flat?" The nephew says, "If she has, I'm not changing the tyre." And like I say, whenever we tell stories about people, what I really like is sometimes the wit of people can be very, very sharp, very quick. And my godfather was one such person. He was a man called Jimmy Briney. Jimmy Traynor was his proper name, but we all knew him as Jimmy Briney. And I had an aunt who lived in Longford, and when Jimmy was 76, my aunt died, and I had the job of taking him down the road to Longford to the funeral. And the funeral service was held in the church in Granite. And as we were going down the road, the news was full of John Glenn going to space on the space shuttle. He was the oldest man at that time ever to have gone into space. He was 72 years of age. And we went to the funeral in the church in Granard, and we were coming out the door, and the people were talking about, would they walk to the graveyard or would they drive? You know, would you get in the car or would you walk? Because nobody was that sure from our part of the country where the graveyard was. And Jimmy Briney says, "Well, I don't care," he says, "where it is." He says, "At my age, I'm not walking." And another neighbour that was coming out behind him says, "What are you talking about at your age? There's John Glenn away into space today, and he's 72 years old." And Jimmy says, "Aye, but he's not walking." He says, "He has a lift." So we'll give all of you a wee lift now and give you a break for a cup of tea. And thank you very much for listening.
But I need to like figure out, once I learn our goals.